there comes a time when retaining credibility, even if it's just a shred of it, even if it's just a nanometer of credibility, it demands that you not reflexively back your side. In fact, I would even go further and say sometimes it demands that you question whether you should be on that side at all. You can see this in the way that Mitch McConnell basically put a knife into Donald Trump. No, he didn't necessarily vote for impeachment, but he basically says he's practically and morally guilty. And it was somewhat of a damning condemnation. You could see it in Nikki Haley backing away from Donald Trump. You can see it in Brian Kemp backing away from Donald Trump. These people were able to say, yeah, I can't go this far. You could still be bad faith hacks. But even within the context of being a bad faith hack, there is a certain degree of a public shame that is, you can ignore. This is somewhat like a superpower in many respects that I've often said of many of the politicians, but it doesn't necessarily mean their capacity for bad faith acts and bad faith takes, and the amount of shame that they can endure in public scorn is limitless. And yet, there are some people out there that it seems to be that way. On the issue with Ted Cruz, Texas is in the middle of a snowstorm. That snowstorm blocks out power for like 5 million places. Right now, there's still hundreds of thousands of homes that are without power, they're without water, they're without heat. The temperatures are in the single and below digits, below 0 digits. And this has been going on for multiple days. I think they're in day 4 or 5, where they're basically back in caveman days of sorts. Ted Cruz, who uses Texas as his boilerplate, who stands there and talks in the way that Texans talk, that's supposed to represent Texas to the world and for the most part to the country of the United States, that gets in office based on the votes of Texans and require the state of Texas to vote for him in order for him to go to Washington to represent Texas. That Texan that is supposed to represent Texas when the going got tough, that Texan got going. That Texan got going to Cancun, Mexico, avoiding the storm. Now, once he was hit with all of this scorn and all of this rage, after all, if you are living on this idea of Texas, that you are the epitome of Texas and that you are representing Texas, it's a little bit weird that when Texas take a hit, you get going. And it's not bad or wrong or even weird for Texans to look at that situation and say, wait a minute. He's supposed to be representing us. He's supposed to be, backing our interests. But in the moment where things got hard in Texas, instead of this kind of shared interest, this common goal, this shared struggle, he gets up and leaves. He leaves. He takes his family and goes on vacation. I don't think it's insane or weird for Texans to have any problems with this at all. Maybe you should have a candidate who's willing to leave and not stick it out with you when times get rough and times get tough. Maybe you should have an issue with that. People aren't wrong for that. Now, if this was, let's say, a Democrat, let's say this was AOC, what would the right wing say about this? What would conservatives say? Would this be a bone of contention? Would this be something that they poke and point at, throw tomatoes at? And the answer, you already know the answer is yes. The difference here is there is something to be said about a candidate that would be in a particular location, use that location for votes and support and cash, and when the going gets tough, they get going. That is amply ripe for criticism. And I don't think people are insane for criticizing it at all. The weird part to me is the defenses that people are putting up. And it seems that those defenses are made by some Republicans. And look, I'm going to show you one of those defenses. And you can make your own decision about whether or not Ben Shapiro here is right. This little man is utterly ridiculous. And the argument that he makes in order to back up Ted Cruz in this is, again, entirely and utterly, intentionally, in a bad faith way, misses the point. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do so. Ted Cruz gave a response to this, but I'm going to show you his communications director response first, and then I'm going to show you Ted Cruz's response, neither of which is serious, not in real terms. Both of these responses are ridiculous. The communications director, I actually thought this was a spoof. I didn't even realize she was being serious. Ted Cruz throws his kids under the bus in something that is a comically ridiculous ploy of, hey, we didn't have gas and water either. We're in this together, but I had to give my kids to Cancun, and I was just being a good dad. I was just being a good dad. Sure you were. And then I'm going to give you Ben Shapiro's defense of all of this. Comically ridiculous.
Yes, Senator Cruz is in Cancun right now. But here at his offices, we say big whoop. Senator Cruz deserves to relax, unwind, unplug, recharge, like you would a power outlet. Or his power grid's going to go out, and we can't be having that. That's
his power grid is going to go out. He has to relax. He has to chill. He deserves a vacation too. Now, wait a minute. Problem. Is he going on vacation, or was he just going to take his kids? Because Ted Cruz said he was going to take his kids. But it sounds like you're saying that he's going on Cancun for vacation at the exact same time that Texas is being slammed with an unprecedented snowstorm. So what is it? Are you right and it's a vacation and he needs to quote unquote recharge his batteries? We don't want his wink wink, no pun intended, power grid to go down. It's great that she can make jokes with all of these people out of power. 5 million people having to boil water, these houses not having heat, many cases frozen pipes. In some cases, you have the people where the water is just flowing out because the pipes have basically burst. But yeah, totally make jokes at that. When your guy has basically absconded and left town when the going got rough. Totally opportune time to make jokes. Right here. This has been an infuriating week for Texans. This is Ted Cruz. The greatest state in the country, in the world, has been without power. Is it really the greatest state if it's can be laid low by a winter storm like this? We have food lines, gas lines, and people sleeping in neighbors' houses. Our homes are freezing and our lights are up. Like millions of Texans, our family lost heat and power too. See, here's the problem with this. If you're going to put this statement out, it is too shallow, far too shallow, to act as if shared interest is intact. You took your family and went to Cancun, Mexico. You were backing Donald Trump as he built the wall, which makes it that much more ridiculous that you would go to Mexico of all places. More importantly, when the going got tough for Texans, when you needed to be there politically, if only politically, even if you didn't give a shit about the other Texans, politically, looks like you would have said, it is in my best interest to be here with these other Texans. And if we need to find ways to use our wealth to make us secure in our home during that time, we need to do that. But we need to be in Texas just politically by itself. It doesn't make sense to leave. But if you're only thinking about yourself, hey, maybe. So then he goes from this feigned, fake, pseudo shared interests in the letter. With schools canceled for the week, our girls asked to take a trip with friends. Wanting to be a good dad, I flew down with him last night and flying back this afternoon. So the suitcase that it was with, pay no attention to your eyes. Pay no attention to the communications directive that said Ted Cruz needed a break. And pay entirely attention to Ted Cruz, who's basically saying, throwing his daughters under the bus. My kids wanted to go to Cancun. I didn't want to go to Cancun at all, which is obviously ridiculously a lie. Why wouldn't you want to go to Cancun? It is fucking freezing in Texas. It makes all the sense in the world that a human being would want to leave an area that is freezing, that doesn't have gas, that is freezing water, and that doesn't have potable water, to a place that is warm, that you can lay on the beach, that you can get water, food, and so forth. I don't doubt that you would want to go. I'm saying politically, it was stupid to do so. And for you to say, I just wanted to be a good dad. I flew down with him last night and I'm flying back this afternoon. That doesn't fly. Doesn't fly. you should have kept your ass at home. If you wanted to have any notion of shared interests and collective responsibility, you should have stayed there with the other Texans that had to deal with that didn't have the luxury of flying. And to make this worse, he got a police escort, meaning in the middle of a pandemic that is in the middle of a snowstorm, Houston cops had to come and get Ted Cruz to escort him through the Houston airport. Now, that sounds horrible. But Ben Shapiro has a defense for this. Let's hear Ben Shapiro defend Ted Cruz on this.
And meanwhile, the media are going nuts today because Ted Cruz apparently is in Cancun. Now, I will admit that this is bad optics. Of course it's bad optics. Whenever there's a crisis, if you are seen to be having any sort of good time because our politics are incredibly stupid, this means that you're responsible for the crisis. Everything in politics is performative right now. Members of Congress don't do anything for a living. All they do is gather once every so often to spend too much of your money. And so everything becomes performative. Right? The reason that AOC is a star is because she goes to immigration facilities and takes photo shoots outside immigration facilities being emotional in response to what is going on, apparently, inside the immigration facility.
Actually, just to be specific, AOC was the star before that. If AOC stardom came from her doing that, nobody would have seen AOC. Any random person could go to a facility and flip the fuck out. There's something else when a celebrity does it, which makes the point that it was a celebrity doing it. Her star was already established before she ever went to the facility and lost her mind. Let's keep going.
Buddies. Oh, yeah, the more performative you are in politics, the better you do these days. That is just the reality of the situation. So I get that it's bad optics for Ted Cruz to take his family on vacation to Cancun right now. It even sounds bad. But let's be real about this for just 1 second. This is one of the stupidest aspects of our politics. Like, what exactly? It's not a real-time crisis that Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, can do anything about. Because the senator from Texas is, in fact, in the United States Senate. He's a federal officer, right? He's a federal elected official. This is up to the mayor of Houston and, like, the governor of Texas and all the people who are state-level officials. And also, I just wonder, what is Ted Cruz, like, did they expect Ted to go there with, like, a blowtorch and start defrosting all of the pipelines? He can do what Beto O'Rourke does, and he can tweet out a bunch of links to people who are helping out. I'm sure Ted's already done that. But the notion that the gravest of all sins is that you took your family to a place that is not Texas in the middle of a bad situation in Texas. My favorite part of this is all the journalists in their heated apartments in New York who are tweeting angrily about all of this. I can't believe Ted Cruz would do something like this. Oh, yeah. I see you there on the ground handing out food. Really, well done there. Really.
Look, if a journalist is in their heated home in New York, tweeting out angrily at Ted Cruz in Texas, they are in their heated home in New York. It wasn't the storm that was hit by New York. Also, I would wager that many of those journalists are still in a place where COVID had ransacked that particular spot. And if those people didn't necessarily leave New York, I don't necessarily know if you have a leg to stand on this front. Meaning, I don't believe for a moment that journalists and people who are basically, let's say, doing the job in a particular place is the same thing as a candidate that gets elected from people voting for that candidate. There's a difference in those things. And once again, you entirely and completely intentionally missed the point. Nobody is asking Ted Cruz to go places with a blowtorch. Nobody is asking Ted Cruz to put a giant heater somewhere. Nobody is asking Ted Cruz to do anything other than shared interests. That's the point that people are making. It's that Ted Cruz gets his votes from the state of Texas. He gets his support from the state of Texas. The only reason we know who Ted Cruz is because the citizens of Texas went to vote for him to put him, unfortunately, in the Senate. Fine. Now that Ted Cruz is in the Senate and he gets those votes from those people who gave him all of that support, it is not wrong for those people to see that person who they voted for to represent the interests of Texas when they see that person get on the airport with a police escort to leave. You yourself said it's bad optics. Why is it bad optics, Ben? Is it bad optics because they vote for this man? This man is supposed to represent their interests, and then when the going gets tough, that man gets on a plane and leave? Is that what you mean by bad optics? It's more than bad optics. It also gets to the heart of this notion about where his head is at. Does he really represent the interests of Texas? Is he only looking out for himself? And is he only there when times are good? It's what this means, the exponential reality of this. That's the problem that people are having. We are in this state, we're suffering. We're the ones that don't have heat. We're the ones that don't have electricity during a snowstorm and during a pandemic. It is our families that are suffering the worst aspects of this, with the medical situation, where you might have people who need medical devices either at night or during the course of the day, not having access to those particular devices, putting those people that much more at risk. Yeah, if those are the people who put Ted Cruz in, it's not wrong for those people to want Ted Cruz to suffer with them. You could say it's selfish. You can say it whatever you want. At the end of the day, the people voted for Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz decides that he is going to leave those people in a lurch when things get rough and when things get hard. By your own admission, that looks bad. It's not just it looks bad, it is bad. From a political standpoint, with your job as a politician, you should know the optics of that. It is in part your job to know the optics of that. And in part, if you're not going to pay attention to the optics of that, and you're going to get on that plane, and you're going to go to Cancun, the consequences of that are the public is going to be very angry at you. The media is going to make fun of you, and they're going to bring up the fact that you left Texas, the state to which you represent, the state to which all of your support depends, that you left people in a lurch when those people were at their worst. It's not that they expected you to do anything. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. What they expected you to do was at the very least be willing to have shared suffering. You could say that's selfish, you could say that's wrong, you can say whatever you want. But I don't think it's wrong for those people to basically think of you in those terms, since they're the ones that put you in office. That's the point. The point is not, oh, that looks bad. The point is not, Ted Cruz couldn't take a blow charge and get rid of the ice. He could have did a Cory Booker and, shovel snow and save people from getting hit by cars. Cory Booker did those things. He was a congressman. But that's kind of besides the point. The issue is Ted Cruz, during a time where Texas needed Ted Cruz, or at the very least wanted to see this kind of thing of shared interests, shared concern, and shared suffering. Ted Cruz took his kids and left and went to a sunny climate for vacation. And then there's a lie somewhere. Either Ted Cruz is lying or his communications director is lying. I suspect his communications director is telling the truth of it. Ted Cruz wanted a vacation in the middle of a snowstorm. Leave him alone. That's basically what his office is saying. Ted Cruz at least was smart enough politically to come back and be like, I just took my kids, but I was coming right back. I wasn't going to stay. Nonsense. These defenses are utterly and entirely ridiculous. If Ted Cruz doesn't think it's a big deal that he went to Cancun, then Ted Cruz should say it's not a big deal that I went to Cancun. I took my kids. I wanted to get out of here. Otherwise, if Ted Cruz recognizes that this is a political firestorm, then why is Ben Shapiro making this particular argument? This is one of those cases where you need to be willing to throw your side overboard, especially if your side is just wrong. And in this very specific instance, the idea that you have to stand here or sit there and defend Ted Cruz with your fast talk, even though you're not really saying anything, is kind of embarrassing. What level of shame are you willing to accept on behalf of this particular tribe, and why? Ted Cruz deserves all of the vitriol and vile that Ted Cruz gets for this. And by the way, this is not even the worst thing Ted Cruz did this year. I would say trying to overthrow the government of the United States, working with Donald Trump on what he knew and expected was a lie. Ted Cruz called Donald Trump a habitual liar. At what point did that change? I would say it changed at no point. Ted Cruz engaged in that process of backing Donald Trump on that for the slimy, cynical, political objectives of just getting his support and beefing up his bona fides among Trump supporters. No more, no less. I don't believe for a moment that Ted Cruz believed Donald Trump. I just believe he was that cynical of a politician. But this is honest. Fuck Texas. I'm going to Cancun. It was only when the pressure was applied to him that he started to come back. But forever backers, Ben Shapiro, not a big deal. If this was AOC, do you honestly believe that Ben Shapiro would be so cavalier about this? so chill, so kumbaya? Or do you think Ben Shapiro will be on this little platform screaming to the hilt about how horrible AOC is, how she's abandoning New York at a time of crisis, etc., etc., etc.? Like, share, and subscribe. It's not that I wanted to do 2 episodes on the Cruz thing, but I saw this and I was like, God, this is a utterly stupid defense. Why on earth are you burning yourself just to defend Ted Cruz, especially on something this utterly ridiculous? And yeah, here we are. Here we are. Like, share, and of course,